Dear friends, risk management and evaluation of internal controls is very important aspect in the whole process of internal audit. So what we are going to do today is we are going to discuss how risk management and control evaluation are so important and what needs to be done to perform an effective internal audit and assess the management in its objective. Before we really look at what is risk management and what is control evaluation, I think one important aspect which we need to understand is what is risk. Now, risk can be defined as any event or action that causes a possible threat to the achievement of objectives of an organization or function. Now, at times a risk can be just an expensive substitute for information. So having a great information is definitely important from the perspective of risk management. Majority of the times risk comes from not knowing what you are doing. But from a business perspective, we need to understand that what are the warranted risks and what are the unwarranted risks. Now here you can see a picture where a couple of human beings are blocked in a cage, and then all the lions and animals are trying to look at them as a breakfast, and they want to have it for their lunch or dinner. Now this is purely out of a thrill. This is not for any business. I don't know why these people have locked themselves in a cage, but this situation is definitely unwarranted. One cannot expose himself or herself to such a situation where there is a question of life and death. And many times, my friends, the organization, the CEO, the CFO, marketing, sales departments often take certain decisions which may expose the organization to unwarranted risks. So, as far as my opinion is concerned, I will not consider unwarranted businesses or exposures as risks. A risk has to be always a conscious decision. Now, what is risk assessment? Risk assessment involves three steps. One is to evaluate the outcome of the risk or what impact the risk may have. That is, we can say as consequence. Then the likelihood or the probability of a particular risk event occurring. For example, we as human beings, our death is certain, so probability is 1. But when it will happen, we don't know. Now, how much impact will it cause to the lives of others or our family members? That is something depends upon the style of living, the standard of living, the income levels, the future objectives. Now, the product of consequence and probability, we can call it as inherent risk. Now, many times in an organization, the management is quite optimistic about the risks which they are taking, the business decisions they are taking. But when it comes to auditors, the auditors are quite skeptical. They ask too many questions to the management that how and why they have taken certain decisions and how they are going to achieve it, because the capital of the investor is at stake. So important aspect of a risk manager or important job of a risk manager is to resolve the differences in perception of risk. A person A may perceive risk in a completely different manner when compared to person B. So for an auditor, it's very important that he understands the perceptions of different people in the organization and tries to find out the true meaning of risks. Now, certain questions one can ask to the management while conducting the risk assessment. So where do you devote considerable internal effort in order to control? What areas receive considerable management reporting? Where have you devoted significant resources? What are the analysts and rating agencies most interested in? Why? What you don't want to appear on the front page of the newspaper? What are the key obstacles of taking advantage of opportunities? What is stopping or what is impeding the growth of an organization? What do your competitors do better than you? It's very important to know. What do people complain about within the organization? It's very important. It can be a very important point or an indicator towards the risk. And you can ask this very crucial question. Often I use this question. If you could fix one thing at the company, what it would be? I'm sure it would be the topmost point which a management would be having in their mind always. And last but not the least, but a very important question to the CEO and CFO is, what keeps you awake at the night? So a what can go wrong analysis can be performed by an auditor, where he can know that where to focus on and what to leave. Now there are many methods which are followed for comprehensive risk assessment. What I am providing you here is a complete risk universe which has external risk, internal risk, financial risk, strategic risk, management information, human capital, integrity, technology, and list of sub-risks in each category. Now this is just a standard template. Each industry would have different kinds of risk, and a different kind of risk universe may need to be get created. Now here is a sample which I am providing you, which is also called as a heat map or a risk chart, which shows how the risks are behaving and where it is moving. An upward direction means the risks are increasing. A downward direction means because of certain steps the management has taken, the risks have started reducing. A horizontal arrow shows that relatively the risks, impact and probability is constant. Now risks are on constant move with changes in the external environment and response to the mitigation steps. How does one evaluate and quantify the risks? So here I am providing you with an example of a supplier concentration risk, where there is a significant amount of sales which is dependent on a material procured from supplier A. It, the sales dependency is almost 10% of the budgeted sales and margins around 30% of the target EBITDA. So one can evaluate the likelihood and compute, because of supplier A, how much risks the management may face. So it could be 5% of the sales or 6.5% of the EBITDA. So assessment of likelihood is dependent on various factors, which may include supplier financial status, economic factors, plant location, relation with suppliers, previous default history if any, disruption at its premises, number of factors such as this. Now what could be mitigation plan for a supplier or risk? Have alternate supplier, stock adequate, share manufacturing facilities, or also look for outright purchase of end products. There are other risk transfer options, which are business interruption and loss of profit policy, or a management can have supplier extension clause in their insurance policy. To evaluate risks, one needs to be fully aware of the impact of the risk, preferably in financial terms. Now here are some risk management strategies. Identification of risk, know the capacity or appetite of the risk, and define what risk can be fully managed internally by the organization, what risk which can be partly managed by the organization, and the risk which the management cannot really manage or the organization cannot manage. Those risks definitely need to be transferred through insurance or any alternative mode. So 5 strategies: elimination or termination of the risk, don't do the business, but that's not right; avoid risk, tolerate or accept risk, but definitely not a good option; mitigation and monitoring of the risk, a worthy option; transfer if the risk management becomes too costly for an organization. So internal control framework is an important tool for management of the risk. Now, many times the auditors say that internal control are those small transaction controls, but I disagree with that. There are a lot of internal controls which includes on-ground process controls, monitoring controls like MIS, KPIs, management controls, administrative controls like policies, SOPs, guidelines, oversight controls or governance controls like audit committee, risk council. They are also very important controls in an organization. Internal audit, predictive, is a more robust control, management compliances, whistleblower policy, independent forum, customer vendor regulator, bank controls are some of the external controls which are also important. So I just want to know, or I just want to tell you that there is a world beyond risk and control metrics. So don't get too much bogged down into the creation of RCM, but also look at the high level controls. But if you ask me honestly, I would define that risk management is best when the greatest growth opportunities are your greatest risk reversed. So I would want management to closely look at risk, not to avoid it, not to terminate it, but with a greater understanding, help the business to embrace the risks. And I think that is an important role of an auditor. Thank you.